Good evening. This is my pleasure today to welcome all of you to the British Library for the fantastic event Riveting Reads, Russian Literature Today. My name is Katya Rogachevskaya. I'm curator of the East European collections and the Russian collections at the British Library. And I also the lead curator of the Russian Revolution exhibition, which is on at the British Library now. And the exhibition will be on until the 29th of August. So if you haven't been, please come and see the exhibition. Tonight, we cast a spotlight on the often overlooked wealth of contemporary Russian fiction available in English. From crime to science fiction, from all parts of the Russian-speaking world. And this is very important because sometimes we say Russia for short, but today we won't be speaking about kind of Russia, but our guests tonight are coming from various parts of the Russian-speaking world, and that will be mentioned specifically tonight. This evening will be chaired by Rosie Goldsmith. Rosie is an award-winning journalist, and she specializes in art and contemporary affairs in the UK and abroad. In 20 years at the BBC, she traveled the world and presented flagship BBC programs Front Row and Crossing Continents. Known in the UK as a champion of international literature, translation, language learning, she promotes them whenever she can. And she is also director of the European Literature Network and Riveting-in-Chief, yeah? Am I right? Riveting-in-Chief. Yeah, and I would like to show you this magazine, special issue of the magazine about Russian writing, which just came out today as a PDF version. So please go on Twitter, on website, and download this issue. Without further ado, Rosie, please. Thank you very much.
It's really been a great journey for me in the last few years, to read some of this contemporary Russian literature. It's been absolutely mind-blowing. I mean, I've been very lucky to interview a number of the modern writers as well, like Hamid Ismailov, Maria Stepanova, Dmitry Bykov, Ludmila Olitskaya, Prilepin, Olya Kashin, Mikhail Shishkin. These are all people I have been privileged to interview at festivals or to talk to at the London Book Fair also. Vladimir Sorkin, Pelyevin, and our writers tonight as well. So I want you to welcome, please, Andrey Kurkov, Boris Akunin, Zinovy, Zinik, and Alisa Ganieva. Now, I'm going to give you a very quick introduction, and then we're also going to hear a bit of actual literature as well, because they've all brought their books or their Kindles or their phones. In Boris Akunin's case, he's got his phone. It's always rather scary when a writer brings an iPad or a phone to read from, but he's assured me it can work. Now, the interesting thing is that even though these are all Russian language writers, and they are all living, at least we hope for at least the duration of the evening, that... It has actually happened once that somebody died on stage. It's a metaphysical question. Yeah, it's bound to be. But you all come from different parts of the former Soviet Union, or you chose to live in different parts. Now, Alisa came over yesterday from Moscow, and Alisa is the most incredible writer, one of the most exciting writers I've discovered in a long time. And I met Alisa at Alisa Ganieva at the London Book Fair this year. And I was amazed to hear that she came from Dagestan. And I knew nothing or very little about Dagestan except where it was, down there, near to Georgia. I knew that. And I knew it had a very small population. And the only pictures I'd ever seen of Dagestan were of the men, the peasant men, in their extraordinary costumes. I remember the costumes very well. And when she said she came from Dagestan, she spoke fluent English, came from Dagestan, and wrote these wonderful novels. I had to ask her, invite her to come over here, so I'm glad you're here. And I've also had the great pleasure to interview Andrey Kurkov a few times, and it's always been interesting, and probably the most interesting time of all, because he is a wonderful writer. If you remember Death and the Penguin, 2001, it came out in English. 7 or 8 of them we have in English, I think, translated. 12 books translated into English. A very, very great writer, and satirist, absurdist, whatever. But the book that I remember first, it really rattled me to the core, were the Ukraine diaries. And you were in Ukraine, in Kiev, at the time of the 2014 revolution, and wrote from your balcony. And
well, not exactly from the balcony, sometimes from the window.
From the window.
But sometimes actually going down, because we live 5 minutes walk from Maidan, near between Golden Gate and Saint Sophia Square, which Boris knows. He recently walked by our house. Yes, and it was easy actually to come down 3 times a day, sometimes at night, to see what is happening and to talk to people.
Do they allow Russians to go to Ukraine then? Did you just happen to be passing?
No, I parachuted.
You were parachuting.
By the way, when I was passing near
This is Boris Akunin, by the way.
Kurkov's house, the guy told me, that's where Andrey Kurkov lives. I looked at the windows, your windows.
Is there not a plaque, though, now?
Well, I'm still alive. And when I'm not sure there will be a plaque.
Which leads me on to Boris Akunin. Now, this has been a recent love, but it's a great love. I am really in love with Boris's writing. He writes about one of the most fabulous detectives you've ever heard of. He's called Erast Vanderin, and he was 20 years, the first book, The Winter Queen. He's 20 years old, he's just become a detective, and he wears a corset because he wants to look a bit slim. He's very vain. Wears a corset called the Lord Byron corset. This is 19th century imperial Russia, and he is like Sherlock Holmes. He's a great detectorist, isn't he? He's Sherlock Holmes, and you're the kind of Russian Conan Doyle. Sold millions of books. This man, honestly, great. Do discover Erast Vanderin. Goes through all the decades of. I think he's 60 in the later. Or has he already become a bit older?
In the last one, he's already 58.
He's 58, so you've grown up with him, or he's grown up with you, whichever.
He's exactly 100 years older than I.
Boris also writes, this is a pseudonym, by the way, but I never know whether he's going to give me his real name, but he's originally from Georgia. He happened to be born in Georgia, and has written under other names as well, and is also a great historian. So most of the books are historical novels of some kind, and is writing the history of Russia. I don't know how you've got time to be here tonight. Anyway, because it's a big undertaking to write the history of Russia. How far have you got?
I've just finished volume 5, which is the history of Peter the Great. So it is the beginning of the 18th century.
Way to go. Are you going to do? You're going to go all the way through to?
I think I'll stop in 1917.
Are you going to include the episode of Peter the Great destroying the Pepys house in Deptford?
No. No.
I
thought that wouldn't be very patriotic. I didn't.
It is just a matter of not a house. It's actually destroyed not just a house, it's destroyed. The house could have been sort of restored.
He paid £500 for it. Come on, it's a lot of money.
He destroyed hedges.
This is Zinovy Zinik. Now, Zinovy is a Londoner. Now he's a Londoner. As you can tell by the extraordinary plummy English accent he now has. But was ousted, lost his Soviet citizenship in 1975. So he writes in both Russian and in English. You've written 14, 15 books, non-fiction, fiction.
Who counts?
Who cares? Yeah, I mean, it is always odd, isn't it, to say how many books. You've written 20 novels, I think, is it, Andrey? Or?
Well, I didn't publish some of them. So, I mean, I published 20 in Russian. The first 4 I didn't publish, and I won't.
And the first one you published was actually was it a year after the Soviet Union
No,
collapsed?
it was actually the first book I had several months before the collapse of the Soviet Union. And it sold very well, and I think it was sold out just before the collapse.
Amazing. There are publishing stories, and Zinovy, you publish in Russia. So you have a Russian publisher, and you have various other publishers.
I published my new novel in Russian after a big break in spring, and it's again a small publisher in Yekaterinburg called Kabinetny Uchёный, the armchair scientist, and it's dedicated to the total change that the Russian language had undergone in my absence of 42 years then. So I realized that I'm losing it, so I invented my own. It's a kind of Clockwork Orange exercise in a way. There's just a lot of invented words and phrases, and because it's all, if you look up at, we live in the age of social media, and when you look into the Russian Facebook, you would be astounded if you read or know Russian, how drastically it has changed and what people allow them to say in Russian. It's a kind of English gobbledygook, basically. It's so many anglicisms and new words that it's actually mind-boggling. Friends, my friends, we have mutual friends with Boris, that they definitely use the same language that I still use or you still use, but still there is another language which is getting developed all the time, and so I felt that I have to write something bizarre.
You speak about the young people like Alisa.
I think that's true for all languages.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, they all have their digital selves.
Yeah.
You're our resident young person, by the way. Every question relating to young people we're going to address to you.
I really feel
How
humble
awful they
sitting
are
near
these
these
days.
giant writers with just 3 novels in my pocket.
Three wonderful novels, though, and I do hope after this we get a British, a UK publisher for you too. That'd be great. And Zinovy's book that we're going to be talking about tonight is the one that's just come out in English, which is called Sounds Familiar and the Beast of Artek. And it's just quite scary, but it's also scary because it's about contemporary times. So we'll talk about that in a minute. But I do want to just very quickly launch into this idea that which I introduced right at the beginning, is that the fact that we've all read so much classical literature, so many of the old, traditional, wonderful Tolstoys and Pushkins and so on, has that stopped you personally reading contemporary Russian literature? I mean, for me, it has stopped me for years. And in fact, when we funnily enough, we asked each of the 4 authors to contribute to our online magazine. This is just printed out for you to see. And when we asked each of them to recommend their favorite, the most formative book that they'd read in Russian, 3 out of 4 of them chose Tolstoy. And 2 chose the same short story by Tolstoy. And only one, Andrey, chose something. Well,
Andrey Platonov.
Platonov, yeah. So obviously Tolstoy and the old Russian guard, they are very important to you. Boris, talk to me about your love of the old Russians.
Well, I think that the great Russian novel of the 19th century is the best thing that happened to Russia in its entire history, and it's probably the most precious present that Russia gave to the world. Because, well, you know, we in Russia, we do have quite nice classical music, but it's not better than Italian or German.
Shostakovich,
Tchaikovsky, okay. Italians, Germans, well.
Speak up, anybody, if you want to defend Russian music, but
Definitely not the best. Good, but not the best. Speaking about painting, well, the same. There are countries which are more important in the art of film.
I heard a sharp intake of breath there.
Speaking about literature, I know no better phenomenon in literature than the classical Russian novel of the 19th century. I believe, sorry if this sounds too nationalistic, but I believe that literature came into age, became grown up with Leo Tolstoy. That he was the first writer who started writing literature that can be read today without condescension, without thinking, okay, this is very nice, but this is historical. When you read Tolstoy, well, I do not feel this way. I can live inside his novels. Like I can, when I read prose by, say, Lermontov or Pushkin, it's nice, I smile, but I always remember that this is 19th century. When I read Tolstoy, it's just about human beings. It doesn't matter when they lived.
Is that why you set so much of your writing in that century, because you love the 19th century?
Yes, exactly, because it was the time when Russia was great. And by meaning great, I don't mean weapons or rockets or colonies or whatever. I mean culture. Russian culture was in the end of 19th century at its best and its peak. They often say in Russia that I feel nostalgia for Romanov dynasty, for the empire. Not at all. But I feel nostalgic, I feel nostalgia for Russian literature. That's why I like to play so much with its styles.
And you do. I mean, you're a genre bender in that sense, because you write in so many different styles, which is, again, very interesting about you. But do you agree with that, Andrey?
Well, I mean, every writer has his own truth and habits and sympathies. I mean, my sympathies lie with Russian literature before 1917 and after 1917. So, I mean, first of all, poets of Silver Age, like Balmont, also earlier symbolists Nikolai Minsky. I loved his poetry, but if we talk about prose, Andrey Platonov, Daniil Harms, Artyom Veselý, unfortunately forgotten, but very interesting writer, Boris Pilnyak. So 1920s, 1930s, they were very important for me. And actually, I was so fascinated by Andrey Platonov that I wrote these 4 novels that I don't want to publish in his style. So it was like just like copying his style, his way of thinking, his way to break the grammar, to get rid of the bourgeois words, to make Russian language more proletariat language.
And you chose Platonov in the magazine as well.
Yeah, I mean, he is always somewhere either inside me or in my pocket. I mean, he is next to me. On the left, on the right, it is Daniil Harms.
Which story?
Which story was it?
Which story was it?
It was Foundation Pit.
Oh, right.
Kotlovan.
And you both chose Haji Morat as the short story. And why that, just before we move on, why that short story particularly?
A short novel.
Short novel, novella.
Novella.
Yeah. Alisa, why do you love that one so much?
I chose it because it really sounds as a contemporary thing. And it's
This
really
is the
beautifully
Tolstoy
written.
story, by the way.
Which one did you
It's one of his latest novels. And
I think it was his last
one, yes.
novel.
And of course, talking about classics, we all grew up with it. It's ingrained in our brains. But at the same time, though I chose Tolstoy's novel, it's very fascinating for me to read contemporary literature as well, because it's akin to gambling, I think, because we don't have an established hierarchy yet, and we can guess about what figure would remain in future and what figure would not.
So as our resident young person, the fact that you're reading contemporary novel, is it just because, I mean, you read Platonov, you read contemporary. Do you read contemporary novels? No, not at all. No.
Well, I read Sorokin.
You read Sorokin?
Yeah.
Sorokin.
I read Shishkin also, and
do you like them?
Andrey
Do you like contemporary?
Gerasimov, Dmitry Bavilsky, but I'm not so much interested actually in very contemporary, in the latest Russian prose.
You're not interested in
No, it's not because I'm not interested.
The new dystopian...
No, just I feel that it would be bad for my work. Because, well, when you are writing is a bit like having a very difficult pregnancy. You have to be very careful about your senses. Now, I know because I'm a writer. I'm always pregnant with a book.
Yeah, he knows because he's a writer.
So you have to be very careful. Just, you start feeling nausea so easily. So I can read only classics. I am sure that it won't fail me. Fortunately, my wife reads everything.
Well, it's
And she knows sometimes, very realistic, she says, well, you should read this. And I take this book like a poisonous snake and I started reading it. And if I feel something wrong, I quickly put it aside. I think that during maybe 5 years, I've read only 3 contemporary novels.
May I recommend,
good for me.
May I recommend one sitting next to you, a contemporary novelist sitting next. I mean, this is really interesting because your novel, for me, sounds familiar, The Beast of Arctic, is contemporary, but it's also about old Russia as well. And you obviously disagree with that.
I don't know. It's just, what do you mean? It's just an opinion. How could I disagree with an opinion?
What is your opinion? What is your opinion?
My opinion, I'm probably, I don't know, retarded child. I had been, because I don't know, I didn't read that much when I was in the Soviet Union. And I left when I was 28, and I read 2 writers. One was Chekhov, from top to bottom and back, and Dickens in Russian translation, which is a complete perversion because it's been published in 33 green volumes under the editorialship of 2, it was a couple, Krivtsova and Lan. And Krivtsova and Lan, neither of them were ever been to England. They translate Fagin as Fagin. Probably they didn't accept the fact that Fagin is a kind of Jewish name from Oliver Twist, and they sort of modified it into a kind of Englishness of Fagin. Whitechapel in footnotes is located somewhere in northwest London, and Dickens, as you know, he just has a long periods, very long sentences, but they are very well balanced and they are understood very easily. But he wanted to transfer this long kind of sentence, long grammar, into Russian. It is actually, sometimes it's impossible to understand and I loved it. I loved it, and absolutely sometimes idiotic translations like «Верхняя половина отца перегнулась через борт лодки», which is literal translation of the phrase that upper part of father's body leaned over the edge of the boat.
They're all nodding. No.
And it's a kind of upper part. Anyway, and I loved it. They both were amazing couple. They committed suicide, 2 of them. Bad joke was that after they had read everything that they created, they were horrified by their deeds. In fact, Lan was very, very ill, and she was ill too, Krivtsova. And it turns out they've taken overdose of morphine. And Lan survived. Krivtsova died.
It's like Romeo and Juliet.
Yes, and Lan was, I don't know why I'm talking about it all. Lan had, I know the link. Lan, he was a morphinist. He got used to the morphine, so this overdose didn't affect him. And she died. It was after the autopsy, it's been discovered that she wasn't mortally ill. She didn't have any cancer. She thought that she had. And Lan died very soon after that. And the thing is that it came into Russian language, actually, this expression, the way of Lan, that is Pуть по Лану, which means commit suicide. And when Pasternak got the Nobel Prize in the Writers' Union, they started whispering that in such a bad, overexcited and depressed, etc., so you can end up with in the Lan's way, so to speak. Anyway, I mean, that's what I've been reading. Distorted translation of Dickens, in Russian, and Chekhov.
I forgot what the question was.
And the question was, what I'm driving at is that for me, Russian classics was a discovery here in England, because I couldn't stomach Tolstoy in school.
What grades did you have at school?
Pardon?
What marks did you have? You haven't read anything at school.
No, I read, but I would forget it, because, I mean, it was like a British boy would hate Shakespeare after sixth form, because it was, I don't know, it was
compulsory reading.
Compulsory reading. So I rediscovered, actually, Russian classic, and it's something very kind of international. If you read wonderful, brilliant Sorokin, or Pelevin, or early prose, I prefer, or, I don't know, any modern Russian writer, you might be very much kind of excited. But what is actually Russian classic is immediately affects you is the sensation how European they were. They're absolutely European. It's amazing how Russia now, even now, is regarded as something, as a kind of isolated. They are invisible borders, in fact. And Russian literature is something which is set in Russia, or used to perceive like that. But in fact, Russian literature, definitely now, is being created abroad, if not mainly abroad. And until certain period, until 1920s, it has been part of the European kind of consciousness. And definitely, I don't know, Gogol written Dead Souls in Rome. He spent most of his life in Rome.
But it's interesting because...
and Dostoevsky, I mean, it's just, if you read Dostoevsky, it's all in Europe.
But also, reading about Fandaran, who's multilingual, he's a great European. All your books, you travel all over. They're very cosmopolitan anyway. It was obviously that period. But what's in? Let's move on to today, because there have been several events already at the British Library. We've spoken about historical literature as well. But I think it is really interesting. We were talking about this in the translation workshop, that by comparison with other languages, there is less contemporary Russian literature being translated. There's a lot of French, by comparison more German and Italian and so on. And maybe it's because the classics, if you like, are so great and so powerful for all of you.
I think it's not powerful. I mean, if you take Akunin, it's translatable. If you take Kurkov, it's translatable. I haven't read Alisa yet, but I'm sure that it's translatable to judge by the bit which has been
we need more of it. That's my lesson.
But the thing is that it's very insular, modern Russian literature. Very, very insular. And very, very difficult to translate. And when translated, it doesn't sound really very exciting, although some of them very profound. Sorokin, is a kind of godlike status in the certain circles in Germany, partly in France, is well translated by Jamie Gambrell, one of the best translators. But I mean, in Britain, is not perceived at all as an entity, because
yes, Boris.
I know the answer.
I just was thinking that if there were not very many translations of contemporary Russian literature these days, maybe it's just because we are not good enough.
I think it's a problem of
I don't know,
English
everyone is
translation.
Andrey.
I think probably there are not enough interesting events happening in Russia which could
No, there's nothing happening in Russia.
Almost nothing, yeah. Which could bring really attention of the reading world. Because in fact, actually, what I was told by German publishers 2 years ago, that now there are 2 or 3 times less authors translated from Russian into German than before. And they cannot find something really new, because the new novels which are offered to them, they are very similar to the novels which were already translated, published, sold out, and sometimes forgotten.
Look, but having or not having events, this is about non-fiction. It has nothing to do with fiction, I believe.
Yes.
You can have, you don't need to have events to be a great writer of fiction, because all the interesting things happen inside your head.
Well, I mean, how many novels in Russia are written about Chechen war? I think I've read about 12 or 13.
Yeah, a lot.
Yes, and none of them became hit in translation.
Let's talk to Alisa about Dagestan, because there is something happening in Dagestan, and there are things happening in Ukraine, and that's, of course, what, I want to talk to both of you about that. Because here you are writing about, you're a woman, it's very difficult for you as a woman, and you even wrote as a man, you took a pseudonym as a man for your first novel, and which did incredibly well and won the sort of the equivalent of the Russia Booker Prize. But the fact that you wrote about your part of the world, which very few people know about, it's a very traditional part of the world, there's a lot of ethnic and racial tension down there in Dagestan. How difficult was it to write about somewhere so completely unknown, get it translated, and get readership as well?
It was a sheer experiment at first, because this entire region, I'm talking about Caucasus, was usually perceived as a place of exile and a place of military war, beginning with the 19th century. And all the Russian classics, many of them served there as military officers, and Leo Tolstoy wrote a number of short stories about this region. So there was this tradition of writing about Caucasus from the soldier's perspective, and nobody wrote about the region as an insider. So that's why it was a little bit scary to do that, and I already was published as a critic at that time. So I took this pseudonym, a male pseudonym, also as a psychological support for myself. And the world which I was describing was also very male-dominated and tense, because nowadays Caucasus is still a hotspot of Russia with all these Islamic insurgencies and fightings between different religious, political, ethnic groups. And maybe many of you heard about the war in Chechnya during the 90s. So it's a big concern for many figures in Russia what to do with this region. And there were some voices about the preferable separation of Caucasus from Russia, and that was technically the plot of my second novel, which is called The Mountain and the Wall, about this scenario of separating Caucasus from Russia. So it's written in the form of dystopia, but actually it's about the present-day life of this multilingual area. I come from the Republic where around 40 ethnic minorities live, so I belong to the major one. So my mother tongue is called Avar. It's very peculiar sounding language.
How different is it from Russian?
Totally different.
Totally different. So it's a different language.
Yes, it's not.
You couldn't understand.
It's not Indo-European language.
Haji Murat was Avarian.
Yes, he belonged to the same ethnic minority, and I can pronounce a phrase in my language if you'd like.
Oh yes, here.
Something like that. So it's lots of guttural sounds, and if you don't speak it from your birth, from your green years, you can't easily learn this language. And there is this phenomena of the so-called noble savage, this meme or the usual literary motive of writing about some uncivilized, colonized areas where these noble savages live. So when I came up with my first long story, it was really praised and warmly greeted, but I noticed that many critics liked it because it was written by a noble savage. So from a person coming from the uncivilized region who somehow knows how to write and to express something and to reveal this terra incognita. But many other critics were truly engaged, but at the same time, I received lots of negative
feedback. What happened when they found out that you were a woman?
They were outraged.
They were outraged?
Yes.
That a woman could write like a man, or that you'd written about this particular part of the world?
I used colloquial language spoken by men on streets, and many of these dialogues were quite harshly written, and I wrote about everything, like religion and relationships between men and women, and corruption and all this stuff going on there. So they said, many of my readers said that a woman from a good family doesn't have a right to.
Now, you actually left Dagestan when you were 17, so you did go to see. You didn't stay. I mean, are there many writers living in Dagestan? You know, young writers.
There is a residue of so-called Union of Writers, so the Soviet institution, and the shambles of this institution still survive in the former republics of Soviet Union. So there are this national subdivision, so-called national ethnical subdivision of this union, like Avar writers, Lezgin writers. I'm talking about different nationalities. Most of them are poets, and most of them are continuing the established canon of literature. So literature is something very lofty, and if you're writing about your own motherland, you have to use very beautiful expressions, you have to glorify your motherland. So, and that is why after my texts came out, they were so outraged, because it's ruining the canon.
It's modern too.
Yes.
I mean, the way you write is very modern. Can you give us a flavour? You're going to read something from The Mountain.
Yeah, The Mountain and the Wall.
Now, the interesting thing, talk about walls. The title is brilliant. It's basically about the Russian government wanting to build a wall. Where have you heard that before? Wanting to build a wall to keep out the Muslim minorities in Dagestan.
The funny thing is that the book came out in 2012 in Russia, and the Islamic State appeared, so-called ISIS appeared in 2013. Trump was elected in 2016. So all these, and Brexit happened 2 years ago. So all these wall memes, I mean, this desire to get isolated.
Brexit hasn't happened yet. It's not going to happen. Okay, Alisa, thank you. Read us a little bit.
It was already dark in the little inner courtyard. Nothing could be heard from outside the gate, not the shouts of kids playing, nor the usual music, nor the sounds of men greeting one another and clasping hands. "It's so quiet today," noted Anvar. He sprang up, grabbed the bar with his long arms, and pulled himself up. "Can you do a flip?" asked Marga. "Sure, look. I'll do a flip and then a few giant swings," said Anvar enthusiastically, and he began swinging his legs from side to side, warming up. Marga observed his maneuvers with amusement. "Hey, you're doing it wrong. Let me try." "I'm not done yet," said Anvar, hanging by one hand. "Listen, brother, show me your fist," exclaimed Marga. "All right," Anvar obeyed, clenching the fist of his free hand. "Now clench your butthole just like that," laughed Marga, shooing Anvar down off the bar. Then he asked, "So who's that Dibir guy?" "Friend of the family." "A Sufi, right? All they do is spout bullshit and then ferret out quotes from the Prophet to justify it," said Marga, after doing a few brisk pull-ups. He sprang down from the bar. "Name's Bashir, he's from our village. He took me to this rock once. Said it's an Ajdaha, a monster." "Which Ajdaha?" "I'll tell you. So there's this Ustaz, a Sufi teacher, who tells folk tales. In our village, he says, there once lived a Chaban, a shepherd who took care of people's sheep, and this Ajdaha started stealing rams from him, stole one after another. But the shepherd wasn't about to run and hide. 'Hey,' he says, 'give me back the rams, or people will think I'm falling down on the job of stealing them myself.' The Ajdaha wouldn't budge. No way was he going to give them back. So then the shepherd took an arrow and shot the Ajdaha, and the arrow hit him in the torso and came out the other side. The shepherd went and took back the arrow and asked Allah to turn the Ajdaha to stone." "So, it worked? Does the stone look like an Ajdaha or something?" asked Anvar, sprinting back up onto the bar and dangling from its head down. "There's a hole that runs straight through it. Other than that, no. Bashir believes it, though he says that the hole is just like an arrow hole. Plus, he says the head fell off afterward anyhow." "What, hasn't he ever seen any stones in the mountains?" laughed Anvar, still hanging upside down. There aren't that many in that area. I told Bashir it's bidah, something new and prohibited. So then he started calling me a Wahhabi. With those Sufis, everyone who doesn't believe them is Wahhabi. Sounds came from the house. Someone was tuning the pandur. Margot got out his phone and squatted on his haunches. I'm calling this girl I know. Anwar tipped his head back, turning his acne-covered face to the sky. The new moon shone faintly overhead, barely illuminating in the darkness the half-finished attic, the lone light fixture by the door and the clotheslines. A startled bat fluttered upward. Anwar whirled round in a vain attempt to see where it went. Meanwhile, the sounds of the pandur inside the house grew louder, sending a folk tune out into the night. Its melody lingered in the air and soon seemed to inflect in some ineffable way the entire spirit of the evening. Interesting, thought Anwar. To me it's obvious, the connection between the night and the music, but the person actually playing the instrument and the people in there listening don't. Have you heard about Rochilmer, the mountain of celebration? It's an enchanted village. Now you see it, now you don't. They say, hello? What's up? How is it going? Margot interrupted himself, grimaced into the phone and turned away from Anwar. Why not? Hey, talk normal. So call some of your girlfriends and come on out. What's the problem? I know you inside and out. Don't play the nun with me. What do you mean I'm coming on strong? I'm not coming on strong. You're the one. You didn't invite me either. You're such a... Anwar went inside. Thank you.
And the translator is Carol Apollonio.
Yes, she's an American from the Duke University.
And it's published by Deep Vellum Books
Yes.
too. And you can get these books. They even have them in foils, would you believe? So thank you so much. I mean, how difficult is it for you to get published? I mean, if these are controversial ideas, stories from a controversial part of Russia, what are the problems with getting published?
I was very lucky to get a special prize for young writers with a very big competition of about 50,000 manuscripts coming each year.
That was your first book, was it Salam Dalgat?
Yeah, so it was my first manuscript and nobody knew it was me. So when I attended these press conferences where the long list and then the short list was announced, nobody knew. They were expecting a young man to show up. And I knew one of the jury members slightly, so he approached me and asked, you're from the same region, have you met this guy? I said no, but we are in contact. He wrote me a few letters. And he said, he asked, is he handsome? And I didn't know what to answer. And then I was asked to show a portrait, by the way, by the organizers of the prize, and I had to register fake email and messenger and to give interviews from this guy's point of view. I even flirted with a couple women journalists, and then suddenly I was announced, and I had to go to the stage and up the stage, and there was a publisher. Her name is Elena Shubina. She's one of the major editors in Russia. So she offered me this opportunity to get published, which is a not very easy thing for a young writer. And then it was a controversial path. Yes, I did get my book published, but at the same time, I did get lots of critical letters and insults. And
well, you've taken on a difficult subject. It's absolutely wonderful, and thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
I mean, interesting because of the publishing idea. If you were talking just Andrey Kurkov before that about being published just before the Soviet Union collapsed.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was very difficult under the Soviet Union to get published.
I think
for certain books.
It was almost impossible. It was catch-22 because in order to get a book published, you were supposed to be a member of the Writers' Union, and to become a member of the Writers' Union, you had to have 2 books published, and you have to have 3 recommendations from the existing members of the Writers' Union. But my collection of sort of novellas was camouflaged as a collection of science fiction prose, and I think it made it easier. And it was already Gorbachev's time, or almost post-Gorbachev's time, yeah. No, it was still Gorbachev's time, but it was the time when actually nobody cared about literature because there were more serious problems in the society.
Is there like a lost generation of Russian writers as a result? I mean, is there a kind of that interim period, if you like, when the Soviet Union was collapsing?
In Ukraine, I think, I mean, what happened in Ukraine was very different from what happened in Russia. In Russia, I would say late, still Soviet generation of good writers became a new post-Soviet generation. So, I mean, people like Kabakov, Petrushevskaya, Lyudmila Ulitskaya, and many others. I mean, they just sort of crossed this timeline and became the live classics of post-Soviet Russia. In Ukraine, the Ukrainian writers, both writing in Russian and in Ukrainian, were immediately forgotten, 5,000 members of the Writers' Union. And there was a huge gap, like 7 or 8 years gap, when there were only 2 or 3 writers active, and others didn't exist, because those actually who were writing for the underground audience, they either remained in the underground or nobody wanted to read them when they managed to do some self-publishing. And the first real generation of post-Soviet Ukrainian writers appeared for me, from my point of view, in 1997-98, and these were mostly young female writers with novels about, I would say, almost like fake autobiographies, with lots of sex, drugs, and rock and roll, because these elements didn't exist in the Soviet literature.
So has there been a lot of writing about sex and drugs and rock and roll since the end of that form of censorship?
Yeah.
Like, maybe another form of censorship has taken its place. I don't know. But so when you I mean, you've been writing for a very, very long time. You started writing when you were a child, and then you wrote children's books. You've written novels and plays and TV scripts and so on, and film scripts. But your novels, which are the ones that have broken through into English, I mean, they're brilliant because they're satire, they're funny. But I mean, how do you think these particularly have done so well in English? Do you think it's just is our sense of humour? Is there something similar in the sense of humour?
Well, actually, I mean, it took me 18 years of sending around the world my manuscripts in English, and with the help of sometimes with my wife, translating extracts and synopses and sending more and more. And I counted, I mean, from 79 till 97, I sent around 1,000 of manuscripts and letters, and received about 600 written rejections from all around the world. Actually, in the end, when I'm asked, and I was many times asked why I didn't stop sending all this, I just said that because from a childhood I was a collector. I collected stamps, different, what do you call it? I mean, lots of things I collected. So I decided to collect rejections. And I have probably the biggest collection of rejections in Ukraine.
I'd love to see them one day.
They have black book, because Beckett actually collected them and blacklisted them.
No, I never blacklisted.
Still now nobody can publish Beckett.
No, but my favorite rejection actually came from London. And I read it to the publisher from where I received this rejection during the presentation of Death and the Penguin. And it was, I mean, it was wonderful, very short text. Dear Mr. Kurkov, unfortunately, we are publishing only quality literature. We are wishing you good luck elsewhere.
Oh.
So actually, I mean, in '97, I sent about 40 or 50 packages with the same extract from Death and the Penguin in English, synopsis, and my CV to 40 different publishers, and 3 publishers wanted to have a look at the original. It was not English publisher. It was Swiss, Austrian, and
French,
Swedish, and Swedes. And the Swiss publisher took Death and the Penguin, and only when the book became bestseller in German language, the English publisher took it over.
This book too has a very interesting history, because the Bickford Fuse, which is the one you're going to read a little bit from, that's got a fascinating backstory as well, because you wrote it under Soviet times, in the communist times, in the 1980s. It was then only published in Russian in
93.
Pardon?
In 93.
93.
First, I published it myself.
You published it yourself, and
Yeah.
then it was published by a proper publisher
Yes.
in 2009, and then it was translated. It was only published in English last year, in 2016 by Maclehose. And what a story for a book! And this, because you've written about Soviet man in this.
Well, it's my first novel out of 5 dedicated to the history of evolution of Soviet mentality. With the same elements which are present in my other books. I mean, lots of black humor, but also lots of real and fake Soviet history in these novels.
What a story.
And more important to me is that actually, because of the research for this book, I came to British Library in 1988, and I was allowed as a Soviet nobody, because I was not a writer at that time, to go into the archives and department of patents and patents, yeah. And I found everything about William Bickford, who was the mountain engineer, lived in Cornwall, and who invented fuse wire. Mm. And he is present in the.
I'm really proud of William Bickford. 1831 invented the Bickford fuse wire. The fuse wire.
And fuse wire in Russian is called Bickfordov shnur.
God.
So I mean, the funny thing is that I mean, when I met first time real English people. And I asked them, what do you think about Bickford? Nobody knew him. Somebody said, well, there was a writer, and there was a writer, William Bickford, also long forgotten. But nobody knew engineer.
And it took you all these years to meet somebody from Cornwall who actually knew, that's me, who Bickford was. But anyway, Andrey, if you'd be so kind, just a flavour of this wonderful work.
It was easy to walk along the bank. The dense grassy carpet that extended right up to the water turned out to be a good road. You always find more people downstream, the invalid said. Why is that? Andrey asked. Don't know, Kartetsky replied. That's just how it is. Maybe the fishing's better, or it is warmer. 2 hours later they came to a small wooden hut that stood between the forest and the river. You see? The invalid asked, exulting. The north side of the hut was covered with greenish moss. Its door faced south. As soon as Andrey stepped onto the veranda, there was a loud crack and his foot sank right through a shattered rotten board. Freeing his leg, Andrey crept up to the door along the edge of the veranda and knocked. No one answered. Then Andrey nudged the door and it opened. The inside was damp and empty. Iron hooks for game or fish protruded from one of the walls, while on the other hung a calendar with color photos of members of the government completely covered in mold. The door creaked and Andrey looked back. He saw that Kartetsky had also entered the hut and was examining it grimly. A winter cabin, he said, shaking his head. Hunters come here for the season. But where do they come from? The invalid shrugged. But if they come here, he said after a moment, that means we can rig up a frying pan. When they do come, they'll hear it. Bring one over. Andrey obediently fetched a black round contraption and hung it on one of the hooks. That'll do, the invalid nodded. All right, 2 more and we'll turn back for home. Off we go. Maybe we ought to listen to what it says, Andrey suggested timidly. No need, Kartetsky firmly stamped out Andrey's desire. We are on the road, and this truth is for those who live in one place. You understand? No, that's all right. They stepped out onto the rotted veranda. By that time, the sun was rolling slowly down the obverse of the sky, but it would still give enough light for a few more hours of travel. Let's keep going with the current, said the invalid. It somehow feels safer and easier by the water. Reluctantly, but dutifully, Andrey took up the wheelbarrow's handles and pushed it out to the green strip of the riverbank. The invalid strode boldly behind him, trying to swing his wooden leg as far forward as possible with each step. A hiss sounded in the abandoned hut, and then a voice broke through it. The following is a report from the Soviet Information Bureau. Listen for the following time signals and coordinate your calendars. In Moscow, Leningrad, Kiev, autumn of 1957. In Perm, Norilsk, Magnitogorsk, autumn of 1953. in Ust-Ilimsk, Vorkuta, Anadырь, winter of 1948. Message to Ust-Ilimsk, Vorkuta, Anadырь. The U.S. Department of Agriculture predicts that this year's wheat crop will amount to 1,117 billion bushels, which is significantly lower than the figure for the last year, but higher than the average yield over the past 10 years. In Berlin, Reichsmarks and Rentenmarks with special coupons attached will no longer be exchanged for Deutschmarks. According to reports from Vietnamese radio, in the months of July, French forces incurred 1,286 casualties, 961 killed and 325 wounded in North and South Vietnam. 58 French soldiers were captured and 190 deserted. Vietnamese troops destroyed 14 land vehicles and 6 ships and shot down 5 French aircraft. According to reports from Delhi radio, British aircraft carried out a nighttime bombing raid in Malaya, targeting areas occupied by rebels. The British Navy, in conjunction with ground forces, shelled the coast of Johor. According to reports from Warsaw radio, the Soviet violinist Galina Barinova and pianist Alexander Dedyukhin gave a concert in Gdansk, which met with great success. And now for a speaking message to all the territories of the Soviet Union. The first draw for the 2% state lottery loans for the year 1948 will soon be held. 918,000 prizes worth 447 million rubles in total will be awarded. The draw will be held in Moscow in the Pillar Hall of the House of the Unions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And,
translated by Boris Draluk.
I was going to say, and we actually have the translator here, so thank you so much, Boris. Beautiful. And we'll talk a little bit more about Ukraine, maybe hopefully later, because there's a lot to talk about Ukraine and what's happening at the moment, also in publishing, because you told me a couple of really interesting stories then. But I want to move on to Zinovy quickly as well. And I was thinking that we talked earlier about perhaps not doing a reading, talking more about your writing. And this particular book, have we actually got a copy here, sounds familiar in The Beast of Artek, which is, I mean, the simplest way of describing it is a Gothic novel, really.
Mock.
A mock Gothic novel.
Yeah, I'm a last probably surviving surrealist.
Tell us about this book, and I think the reason I've sort of done it all in this order as well, because I think that there's a real revival of Gothic, love of Gothic at the moment, well, the last few years in this country, and which you probably know of and love anyway. But the fact that it's Gothic, supernatural, there's a lot of dystopian novels also being written in Russian. You've written this in English, but it does have a Russian central or some Russian characters in the centre. Tell us about the book and what you wanted to do.
Well, I actually was in love with the Gothic genre, but basically my life is Gothic because I left when it was 1975. So it was a firm iron curtain with a lot of holes in it. But I had been in touch a lot with my friends in Moscow by post, by writing letters. And I think one or maximum two actually had been lost, of hundreds, if not thousands, that has been all safely delivered. And then I worked a lot for the BBC World Service, and in Russian too. So it was also just kind of a Gothic experience in a way that your voice is in Russia and your body is here in London. And so there's just these motifs of a kind of ghostly presence definitely run through my life. On the other hand, I don't know, it's very difficult for me, although I've been in touch and still in touch with a lot of my Russian friends, and I'm published occasionally in Russian. But it's, I don't know, it's just, I'm amazed by the evening, because, I don't know, it's just an audience. A lot of people speak Russian here. And when I arrived, there was no Russian London whatsoever. You could hear Russian only at the BBC World Service in Bush House, in the Russian service. So I, right from the beginning, had to adapt myself to the to London life. And my Russian experience was from the kind of the reverse kind. I would come across, I don't know, I've been the member of the notorious Colony Room in Soho, where Francis Bacon had his own, kept his own court, so to speak, and Lucian Freud, etc., the great drinkers of London. And so it's just all, I don't know, it's just, I don't know, London theatre, which I know quite well. And you come across these unpredictable places among unpredictable, very London type of almost exotic creatures. You come across people whose life is actually very much connected with Russia. And in Russia, it's not very much understood how well informed people in this country, actually. I mean, I remember when there were quite a few foreigners at in the early 1960s started to arrive in Moscow, students, etc., from England. And I remember this kind of sneer almost that they've been greeted with, that it's just ignorant foreigners, they don't understand our complicated Russian life. In fact, they did understand quite a lot. And so my view of Russia, in a way, it's kind of from this point of view. And meeting these people and finding amazing connections. And it's all reflected in English literature. I don't know, it's just everyone remembers Anthony Burgess's Clockwork Orange, but he had a fantastic novel, Honey for the Bears. It's about an Englishman arriving in Russia. And it is all now, if you read it, it reads very modern, like a novel about perestroika, because he was cheated by a so-called dissident crowd in Moscow. And in fact, he was played on by mafia people, and he's been used by mafia people. So it's people know, and I don't know, it's a Michael Frayn, fantastic early work of his called not a play, but prose writing, is Russian interpreter. It's amazing, precise description of Moscow in 1960s. So I've always been interested in these crossing points when Russia is reflected in British life. And it is part of British life, because a lot of people since the Second World War were involved in Russian life. Then there was a period of perestroika, when a lot of businessmen actually become involved in Russian life. They bring wives. There was a generation of Slavonic studies students in the 1960s, 1970s, who had a cultural exchange with Voronezh, and they're known as the Voronezh generation. Girls come back to London all pregnant. I mean, 90% of them, you know. And so it's just, there is a kind of Russia in London that is not very much known, neither to Russians, because it's all in the circles that hardly express their publicly their involvement, spiritual or political involvement in Russia. I'm not talking about politicians.
But do you feel yourself, do you feel a connection with Russia? When you're sitting here with Russian language writers, right, what do you feel? Do you feel Russian or do you feel...
No, but no, I don't, nothing. I don't feel anything particular. I don't know. Boris Akunin was a very famous editor of the magazine Иностранная литература, foreign literature. And so in a way, my first acquaintance with him on literary terms was through foreign literature, in a way.
And the interesting
I saw the fantastic interview with Mavis Gallant,
yes.
the Canadian writer who spent 50 years in Paris and wrote in English. And she said, wonderful phrase, amazing phrase. She said, I asked, why don't you write in French? Because I feel I've been proud to write my first pieces for the Times Literary Supplement in English. So I felt that it's a kind of liberation for me. And she said, no, I don't want, why should I write in French? I don't want to be regarded as an émigré writer, which was paradoxical in a way.
But what you're writing about, though, is, I mean, I wonder whether Alisa can connect in some way with you know, these are contemporary issues to a certain degree.
Right, yeah.
And, you know, whether you feel, I mean, obviously, you're writing about quite difficult subjects, whether you're freer these days to write about sex, drugs, rock and roll, as you were talking about, you know, when the Soviet Union collapsed, everybody suddenly wanted to write about all that, or did they? I don't know. But, so, I mean, can you today in Russia, can you write about oligarchs, corruption, police corruption, all those kind of, are there any holds at all, any bars on anything you write?
You mean you're asking me? I'm not writing
generally
about it.
Generally asking.
I don't know. I mean, I'm not a Russian writer in that sense.
No, I'm generally asking anybody else whether they would...
There's much more freedom in fiction, of course, than in media. Media is censored very much, but fiction literature is now on the margin of their interest. Everybody's watching TV or films or...
But how different is that from here? I mean, we're also watching box sets and
during
TV and
the
film.
last, I think, 3 or 4 years, it's becoming more and more tough. For example, you are not as free as before to write about homosexuality, for example. Many of the children's books are prohibited in our Russian provincial libraries. And if you are talking about Caucasus, for example, it's complicated to write about the option of agnosticism or atheism, because it's very much religious, becoming more and more religious.
Yes, the church becomes the new kind of central committee.
Boris, what do you... I mean, you're published very, very widely in Russia, but your books are not provocative.
Well, I believe that there is no censorship in publishing in Russia, just because I agree with Alisa, the regime doesn't think that literature is important, luckily.
They don't care.
For us, yeah, they don't care.
So that's good.
That's good. It's a blessing.
Discuss.
Yeah.
They obviously all accept
know.
that. Well, fine.
but there isn't, I don't know, it depends on personality. I mean, if a certain editor has certain predilection for the Russian Orthodox Church or ultra-Orthodox Judaism, he would reject certain books, it's no question. But that happens in this country too. You know?
But I mean, there are all kinds of regulations and laws pertaining to publishing and to what you can write in the media and so on. So it is difficult.
No, but I mean, it's again, you think that Russia is in some way, of course it's a mafia state. I'm not talking about that in terms of political, administrative side of it. But basically, people are people. One shouldn't really use all these Cold War isolationist categories, because it's basically the same in this country, as we know. I mean, this prevailing of liberal, neo-left kind of language is so restrictive. You couldn't have said anything about the Muslim problem in this country, even about 5 years ago. I once used in my flat, I mean, all enlightened people, I don't know, working for the BBC, authors or contributors to the London Review of Books or TLS, to which I contribute regularly, and they sort of enlightened. And then I started in the context of kind of social, I don't know, chat. I said, but since the world of Islam is in a state of psychosis, I started this sentence. I wasn't really allowed to finish. The people
but as
jumped
you say,
on me.
I mean,
It's a political correctness.
That has changed. I mean, just I do want to bring Boris into us. And no, not at all. Sorry.
Probably I should mention one thing. My books are not published in Russia for the second time now from 2008. First time they were not. They were banned in 2004 during Orange Revolution, in exchange for my interviews in foreign press, and I was not published until 2006. In 2006, my books were reprinted by Amphora Publishing House. From 2008, no more editions. And in 2014, after 2006, my Ukrainian-based publisher was sending my books to bookshops in Russia. In April 2014, he was told on the border that President Slaslav is on the list of banned literature, the other books were allowed in, and 2 months later, all books were on the blacklist.
What is it, blacklist? What does it mean?
Well, I mean, the official list is a list of extremist literature.
All right.
And it's very flexible.
And it
so
is flexible, and
anything
it is I don't think it is official, and I don't think you can get a whole...
Well, it's quite official because the director of Ukrainian library in Russia has been arrested and sentenced for keeping so-called extremist books in the library, though they are...
So just to talk briefly about Ukraine, and then we're going to talk about Boris's book. But Ukraine, does it have a separate publishing industry now? I mean, you were one of the chief commentators, as you said. You risked a lot to talk to the foreign press, and you were on the BBC all the time talking about what was happening in Ukraine. But are you confident that Ukraine is building up its own literature?
Well, it's very difficult. It's coming, but I mean, we had ups and downs. I mean, until 2008 crisis, the industry was working okay. It was not working very well because all the bookshop chains were created not by the enthusiasts of books, but by people who wanted to develop business and to sell it on. So we had never reliable distribution. As the result, the bookshops very often didn't return money for the books that were sold to the publishers. Publishers started printing less copies, and now we are back to the sort of phase A. So the publishers are trying to sell books themselves during the book fairs and festivals, and there are only about 30 or 40 reliable bookshops for the country with 40 million.
And there are fewer and fewer bookshops. They're closing all the time, in Moscow as well, from what I've been reading about. But Russia is such a huge book market. To be cut off from the Russian book market must be really difficult for Ukraine's a big country, but a smaller country.
I don't know. I mean, probably. It coincided in 2004. Disappearance of my books coincided with a series of articles in the media explaining that I'm a very bad writer. In 2014, I was described as a traitor of Russian culture, etc. So probably I'm not good enough for Russian readers, but I have a lot of readers in France, in Germany, in Japan, etc., in England, in America.
We love you.
So, and I think probably also that what I write seems for serious Russian readers something very light, too light to be
because
serious
it's
prose.
Absurdist or satire.
Yeah. It's not.
But it's incredibly profound.
It's not in Tolstoy's tradition.
Not enough tragical, not enough tragical.
You too much humour.
No, come on.
No, you cannot have too much.
No, I'm provoking you there. But Boris, have you read Andrey's books? I'm going to put you on the. Do you think they're difficult to read? Do you like them?
Well, I don't know if you read.
Provocative question.
Yeah.
I'm trying to bring. Actually, let's talk about. We can talk about that later.
It's just that I'm sorry, I haven't read
You haven't read
fiction since
no,
last
that's
millennium.
True. You did say that. Yes, I take that back. That wasn't a fair question. You did tell me you hadn't read anything up to date for quite a long time.
Well, I thought you wanted to put me into awkward position.
No. I respect you far too much for that, and I genuinely do.
I read only non-fiction.
Gosh. But how do you write so much? You are one of the most productive writers I have ever met. And I know that you've published a number of the Erastvanda and have been translated into English, but you've published far more than have been translated. I think your translator, Andrew Bromfield's trying very hard to keep up with you at the moment. But, how many books have you published? Because you've published in all kinds of...
About 70?
About 70 books. And these are actually full-length books under various different names, too. 20
years.
20 years. 70 books in 20 years.
Yeah, a lot of people in Russia are sure that there is a team of, literary slaves working for me. Actually, it's just...
Just you?
Yeah, because, I have developed a technique for myself, which I would recommend to any author, really.
Please, in details.
Because people like us, we know only, what we do with our life is write. This is our way of existing, of expressing ourselves. I have a lot of friends who are writers, and they always whine that I've finished this book, I'm never going to write another one, it will never going to come again, it stopped. Some of them start drinking, some of them start divorcing. Well, my technique, secret technique, is that once you start to work with words, just do not stop. Write differently. If you want to take a break, if you want to rest, stop writing fiction, write nonfiction, write essays, write in your Facebook, whatever. Just write, because it is the only thing that makes us happy, that brings sense into our life. I have discovered it long ago. So I always write at the same time 3 different books. And by saying different, I mean very different. Absolutely different in genre. They occupy different regions of my brain. And as soon as I start feeling bored and tired with my writing, I stop immediately, because the thing that you cannot afford in our profession is to start to get bored with writing. So I stop, I take my notebook, I go to another place where there is another book waiting for me, I write it again till I get tired, then I move to a third place, and I always move inside this triangle, because all those 3 books have to be written in different places. When I used to live in 1-bedroom apartment, one place was my bedroom, another place was my kitchen, and the third place was living room. So I had 3 tables and I was moving between them. Now I move between different countries. So this way, these shifts usually continue for a fortnight, 2 or 3 weeks. I know it by experience. Then I start to get tired, I need rest, and rest means writing differently.
But what about your ideas?
Oh, with ideas, I have a file in computer. There are ideas for maybe 200 books which I am never going to write. Ideas, well, they come easily. The difficult problem for a writer, and I think that since you have written only 3 books, you're still going to discover this, is not ideas, but words. You use up your vocabulary. Words, they start to lose elasticity. There is no resistance. You start feeling like a streetcar. There is just this rail, you get on it, and you move. You can move on sleeping. Your hands will continue writing because you have the technique. And it is the most frightening thing that can happen to a writer. It always has to be difficult. You always have to feel as if you were breaking ice. It cannot be like you are skiing down a mountain. The problem is words. You have used all phrases, all metaphors, all genres, all styles. This is what is difficult. Not what you're writing, but how you're writing it.
So, I mean, the fact that you have already, in the 70 books that you've published, you have already written in all styles. I mean, you've written science fiction, you've rewritten Hamlet, I think, you've written fairy tales.
Chekhov, Shakespeare.
Chekhov, Shakespeare.
I wrote like Dostoevsky, like Tolstoy, like Chekhov, like...
And this is just because you want to try it out.
Just that
it's like
my
trying on different
biggest
clothes.
fear in life is to be bored with myself. So I have always to change rules of the game. It has to be a challenge.
Does it matter to you about selling books and making lots of money? And I mean,
luckily, not any longer. Luckily, now I can afford writing just for myself, the way I like it, and quite willingly. Recently, I have traded the quantity for the quality. I'm more interested now in a lesser number of readers, but qualified readers.
Because you were with the Fandaram books, you published, I mean, in total, about 30 million books in Russia. And even with 70 books, you wouldn't be able
Yeah,
to
and I'm
cover
fed up with this completely.
And you're
I'm
fed-
writing now the last Van Doren novel, and I'm glad to be done with it because I've been working on it for 20 years. I have changed, life have changed, other things interest me. I want to write differently, and I'm doing this too, of course. Now, there is an absolutely new field for a writer which comes with internet thing, multimedia, interactiveness. You can experiment with writing which cannot exist on paper in general, and I do that too. So, like, this is really amazing. You are not tied by paper. You can let a story develop freely, have branches. You can let your reader choose or make a choice or express his or her personality. I'm very much interested in that sort of experimenting recently too.
You've actually got your smartphone with you, and you've got your very final Van Doren novel with you on your phone. And I think just to end the evening, I think if you'd be kind enough to read a short passage from the
Okay, I'll just
as yet unpublished
in English. It
final
will be
Van Doren.
released soon, like
We
in
started
2
late,
months.
so bear with me. We're just going to run over a few minutes.
So the novel is called All the World's a Stage. It is an Erast Van Doren novel. Like Rosie said, in the first novel he was 20 years old. In this novel he's already 54, because this is novel number 13. I will start just reading from the beginning, and you tell me how many minutes do I have.
I'll bang you on the shoulder when I've had enough.
Oh, just I can stop. So the first chapter is called A Harmonious Man. Erast Petrovich Van Doren began regarding himself as a harmonious man from the moment when he mounted the first rung on the ladder of wisdom. This event occurred neither too late nor too soon, but at precisely the right moment, at an age when it is already time to draw conclusions, but it is still possible to change plans. The most substantial conclusion, drawn from the years he had already lived, resolved itself into a supremely brief maxim that was worth all the philosophical teachings of the world taken together. Growing old is good. Growing old signified maturing, that is, not deteriorating but improving, becoming stronger, wiser, more complete. If, as a man grew older, he had a feeling of impoverishment instead of enrichment, then his ship had wandered off course. To continue the maritime metaphor, one might say that Van Doren had cruised past the reefs of the 50s, where men so often suffer shipwreck, under full sail, and with his standard fluttering aloft in the breeze. The crew had very nearly mutinied, to be sure, but disaster had been avoided. The attempted mutiny actually took place on his 50th birthday, which, of course, was no accident. There is an indisputable magic in the combination of figures that is not felt only by those who are totally devoid of imagination. Having celebrated his birthday with a walk along the seabed in a diving suit, at the time Erast Petrovich was a passionate enthusiast of deep-sea diving, in the evening he sat on the veranda, watching the public stroll along the esplanade, sipping on his rum punch and mentally repeating to himself, "I am 50. I am 50," as if he were trying to get the taste of an unfamiliar drink. Suddenly, his gaze fell on a decrepit little old man in a white Panama hat, a desiccated, trembling mummy who was being pushed along in a wheelchair by a servant. The gaze of this Methuselah was clouded, and there was a thread of saliva dangling from his chin. I hope I shall not live to that age, Van Doren thought.
Perfect ending. I'm sorry we won't have time for questions and answers because, but you will be able to talk to the authors outside with their books as they sign their books. And before I thank them, I do want to thank Susanna Stevenson and the various people who've been working with me on this wonderful event. I want to thank Anna Blazak, as always, my great support, and Max Easterman, Mihai Andrey, who's doing the filming. There'll be a film of the whole evening, so on our website, on the European Literature Network website. And don't forget, you've also got your Riveter. All the books we've discussed tonight are reviewed in the magazine, also on our website, and it's all free. Everything is free. And thank you.
Apart from books.
Apart from the books. Thank goodness the books aren't free.
But mine is actually illustrated by very professional artists.
And it's beautiful, beautiful
and it's the
book.
best paper ever used for
There you are, there's a great picture.
some of them totally obscene.
Some very obscene, I've just seen
It's
some
more
wonderful
graphic
buttocks
than the
there.
Some of them not.
Anyway, I do want to thank them. I've given you a flavour of what's being written at the moment in modern living Russian language literature, and there is a lot more to read. Thank you to the translators. I hope I've remembered each time to name the translator, Andrew Bromfield, translator. This has been translating all your Fandaram books. And please thank Andrey Kurkov, Alisa Ganieva, Zinovy, and Boris Akunin. Thank you very much.